All right, listen. Today I'm going to give you the baker's dozen of Iaido strength training drills. It's totally true that you can't learn Iaido from a video. But what you can do is make yourself stronger, better balanced, and more effective if you train this way and make your body understand what it has to do to deliver the most power in the best way possible when you practice swordsmanship. So this next drill will hopefully help make you stronger in your downward cuts. By the way, I'm using a really nice bokken that was made for me by Colin Roach, who's author of Japanese Swords, Cultural Icons of a Nation. I encourage you to pick that book up if you're interested in swordsmanship, Japanese culture, or history at all. So it's arguable that in the appropriate cut in Iaido, the first part of the motion is the most important for generating strength. We go from a bent arm position to a straight arm position, extending out, and then our arms stay strong, and it's just structure, right? It's just skeleton that controls that momentum and brings it into its final position. So most of the power, boom, comes from here. You need to be able to create some resistance so that you can build strength and teach your body exactly what to do to make this as strong as possible and as effective as possible. Once again, if you have some resistance bands, that's really helpful. So here's what we're going to try and do. So we're going to try to reproduce that to the best of our ability. I spoke before about putting the hooks in your wall. Once again, make sure they're strong and safe, but it'd be great to have 3 different levels of hooks, low, middle, and high, to create the differing angle of resistance depending on what particular exercise you're doing. For this one, I probably want it high, or maybe not completely high, but my point is this. I'm going to create resistance for that first part of the motion so that my body can feel what it means to be explosively creating power as I go forward. The rest of the motion is pretty much done under momentum in a good downward cut. But in this case, I just am trying to increase my strength, make my nervous system understand what has to be done here, and improve my efficiency as I develop my downward cut for Iaido. Next, I want to talk to you about sayabiki, that's pulling the scabbard back. That's a motion that's often missing when the amateur swordsman draws, but that's something we definitely don't want to have missing when we're drawing so that we're effective, fast, and efficient. When we draw, we want to make sure we're strongly pulling back that left hand and turning it over. That helps get the scabbard out of the way and helps increase the expansion of the upper body for more power and more speed. It's really a pretty simple exercise. You just use these bands and teach your body to do this and maybe overdo it. Make sure that you rotate this around. You take your left hand, you come back, turn it over, and really let the elbow come around behind the body. You can overdo it now. Just make sure you adhere to the form requirements of your particular style of swordsmanship when you're practicing this sayabiki motion. The flip side of that is the pushing extension of the sword, right? When we do that motion, when we draw, we're going to push the sword away, like so, and push it away from ourselves. We want to do it in a strong manner. You'll notice that a lot of people who are beginners at swordsmanship or are new to it, they leave their elbow out in front. If you tuck that elbow under and push, it's going to be a lot stronger because you're using your structure to push instead of just your muscles. So you just have to have the discipline when you do this motion to create some tension in that band. Lead with the blade edge of your hand, elbow in, and push forward, experiencing that resistance. Experiencing that resistance. The last thing you want to do, and you can separate the band from the wall, but for time's sake, what I'm going to do is keep them together, keep it together here, is you want to use the band itself to create resistance between the hands, so that while the left hand is moving back and coming around the body, and the right hand is pushing forward, it's getting harder and harder to do, so your body can calibrate that feeling and understand what it means to separate, to sayabanare, right, to separate the scabbard from the sword, using the back muscles, expansion of the chest, right, pulling the left elbow around the body, keeping the right elbow tucked in, and pushing, expanding and countering resistance, and finishing that motion, expanding and countering resistance, and finishing that motion. That should make your nukitsuke, your initial horizontal draw, much, much faster over time if you practice consistently continually and thoroughly. In the particular form of Eishinryu Iaido that we practice, raising the sword overhead is done in a very particular way. It helps to protect from an oncoming cut, maintaining a strong structure, and deflecting that cut before raising the sword overhead to create a cut of our own. After the Nukitsuke, the arm is roughly equal to the clavicles, and we bring the sword in front and raise the blade edge, and then we do the first part of this motion with the tip slightly low, but with the arm straight to create structural strength to deflect that oncoming cut. So it's very important for us to do this as a straight arm lift, pushing through the heel of the hand for power. So it's relatively easy to recreate that with the exercise band as we've been doing today. You just want to make sure that your arm is completely straight, that you don't give in to the impulse to bend your elbow, but instead keep your arm straight, push through the heel of the hand, and continue pushing as you lift. You can make that exercise band take a position so that it creates the right resistance. Your body will get used to this. You'll build your muscles and make this an efficient, smooth way of getting that sword overhead so that you can deflect the imaginary oncoming cut and then proceed with a cut of your own. Hi, I want to talk to you today about 5 major mistakes that we see people do when they're trying to learn Iaido. This may be because Iaido is just difficult. It could be because they don't have a great teacher, or it could be that they just haven't practiced enough, and little by little, people who learn these skills will be able to implement them, and after a while build them into a reflex set that makes them very strong, very balanced, and very good at the martial art known as Iaido. The first mistake we see is people not aligning their feet properly, particularly the back foot. I don't know, hopefully you can see from where you are that the feet should be parallel, lined up with the line of the cut. And what we see most often is that the back foot gets lost and turns in a little bit. This not only opens the hip up, but it puts the back heel in a position where it can't generate appropriate power. I don't know if you've ever lifted weights, but you may have noticed that the strongest muscles in the human body are the calf muscles. You want to align those muscles to get the maximum benefit so that they appropriately create structure so you can develop power, balance, and form when you cut. So if that back foot is turned in, instead of straight being aligned with the cut, you get all sorts of artifacts. I showed you the legs. What happens upstairs is the hips tend to be open, the shoulders a little bit back, and it's almost impossible to get a nice clean cut when the back foot is misaligned. When the back foot is parallel with the line of the cut as well as the front leg, it's much easier to develop a strong linear cut that tracks with the structure of the skeleton. So that's point number 1. Feet should be parallel, and except for angled cuts, the back foot should be aligned with the line of the cut. The second mistake we see people make is failing to stay in contact with the ground. This involves 2 things: a good base and sliding the foot along the ground as it moves back. So here's an example. We see people moving from feet together into a extended stance, and they typically will do something like this. That's kind of a falling into the stance and a lowering of the body. In fact, what's desirable is to be low already, and instead of falling, is to push back. It's to maintain the contact with the ground as you move back. So the foot slides. Again, the feet are parallel, and the foot slides, and you maintain that structure as well as you are able to stay low on the same level that you end up in when you've taken that sliding step. Another mistake we see people make is handling the scabbard. People tend not to handle the scabbard very well in 2 ways, particularly on the draw. 1, they don't grab far enough up on the scabbard. As a result, the scabbard and the sword have no nerve endings, have no ability to understand the relationship between one another. And then 2, what they don't do is they don't pull that scabbard back. So if you see people doing Iaido and they draw, you hear a scraping sound at the end, the scabbard sticks out. It's very hard to get that sword out effectively when there's a lot of space between the hand, the end of the scabbard, right, and the scabbard's not being pulled back. What we want to do instead is completely enclose the end with our hand, pull that scabbard back strongly. That's called sayabiki, right? Pulling the scabbard back. And that helps to create the thing called sayabanare, separation from the scabbard and the sword. So the hand completely envelops the end of the saya, stays down, pulls, and then the two parts, the sword and the scabbard, are separated very effectively. Once the sword's out, the primary place we see mistakes is in the grip, the tenouchi. The hand should be over the top of the handle in tenouchi. And often what happens is people, particularly with their left hand, starts to come to the side of the bottom of the handle. And what you get then is a tendency to lose it at the bottom of the cut. Instead, for proper tenouchi, the hand should be over the top with a long extended grip, almost as though you're pointing your fingers, right? And the power's in the left hand, so that hand finishes very strongly, and there's skeletal power that brings that sword to a stop at the end. That's how you extend, and that's how you stop it. The cuts should be very clean, stop strongly, and that's because, again, power's in the left hand, and the skeleton controls. When the hand's off, skeleton can't control, you get a lot more whip in the sword. And although that may be appropriate in a sport like kendo, in Iaido, you want to use structure, your skeleton, to make strength and efficiency in that cut. And then one more area I want to talk about today is putting the sword away. Just as we said on the draw, the hand should completely envelop the end of the scabbard, called koiguchi, right? It should do so again when the sword is being put away at the end. It should completely envelop the scabbard. The scabbard should be pulled back. And then, here's a big mistake people make unconsciously, especially when they're using an iaito or something that's not sharp, is as soon as they start putting that away, whoop, that thumb comes up. I don't know if you can see from there, but having your thumb riding on the top of a 3-foot razor blade is really a poor idea. What should happen is, when you make koiguchi here at the top, the thumb touches the finger, and the thumb should stay connected to that finger throughout the entire noto, or putting the sword away, until it's completely safe to bring up at the end and to control the tsuba. So I hope those 5 points that we see people make mistakes on help you move toward better Iaido. If you have any questions about those things, feel free to contact us at info@JapaneseMartialArtsCenter.com. We love the martial arts and we love teaching the martial arts. We'd love to see you down here. Feel free to stop in for a visit or contact us anytime you want more information.